You sold my jewelry for her.
Kevin, I'm with that Timming.
Mom, it's not what you think.
The savings are all gone.
What do you mean they're gone?
Your daughter stole them for her boyfriend.
When my son sold my jewelry for his girlfriend, I didn't shout. I didn't even cry. I just sat at my kitchen table, hands folded around a cup of warm coffee that had already gone cold, staring at the empty velvet box that once held my wedding ring, a gold bracelet from my mother, and a pair of earrings I'd promised to pass down to my granddaughter someday if I ever had one. My name is Linda Parker. I'm 58 years old, a widow, and I live in a small town in Ohio, the kind of town where everybody waves when they drive by and gossip travels faster than the wind. My husband, Tom, passed away 8 years ago. For a long time, I didn't think I'd ever feel whole again. But I had my son, Ethan, and his little boy, Mason, who was only 2 when his mama walked out. After Tom's funeral, Ethan and Mason moved back in with me. We made this house ours, just the 3 of us. Those were good years, filled with small joys. Mason learning to ride his bike on the driveway, Ethan mowing the lawn on Saturdays, and me baking cinnamon rolls every Sunday morning before church. The house smelled like sugar and coffee, and laughter used to echo through every room. But, like the seasons, people change, and sometimes you don't notice it until the air starts to feel different. Ethan was 28 when he met Amber Collins. She worked at a diner off Highway 47, red hair, bright smile, loud laugh. At first, I was happy for him. He had been alone for so long, and Amber seemed to make him come alive again. She'd stop by on weekends, bringing leftover pie from the diner. We'd sit on the porch, drinking sweet tea, watching Mason chase fireflies in the yard. For a while, it felt like maybe, just maybe, we were finding our rhythm again. But love, when rushed, can hide things you don't see right away. Amber started staying over more often, leaving her perfume on Ethan's pillow, her makeup bag in the bathroom. She'd rearrange the kitchen cabinets, move the sugar jar to a better spot, throw away old mugs she said were tacky. Little things. Tiny ripples that didn't seem like much until the peace I'd fought for began to feel fragile. One evening, I came home from the grocery store and found the back door unlocked. Amber was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, feet on the coffee table. Mason was upstairs. Ethan was still at work. I tried to sound polite. "Amber, sweetheart, could you make sure the doors are locked when you're alone? We've had some break-ins nearby." She didn't look up. "Sure, Linda," she said, her tone flat, "but it's a safe neighborhood, right?" Her voice carried that easy confidence, the kind people use when they don't have much to lose. I noticed she'd been going through our mail, too. A few envelopes from the bank were stacked open on the counter. When I asked about it, she smiled and said, "Oh, I was just cleaning up. Ethan said it was fine." I wanted to believe her. I really did. That night, I mentioned it to Ethan. He sighed and rubbed his temples. "Mom, please, she's just trying to help. Don't read too much into it." So I dropped it. Because that's what mothers do. We give the benefit of the doubt, even when our hearts whisper otherwise. Mason was 10 then. A quiet boy, thoughtful, who noticed everything. He loved his little tablet, always recording silly videos or pretending to be a YouTuber. One afternoon, while I was baking, he sat at the kitchen table, watching Amber and Ethan talk in low voices. He looked uneasy. "Grandma," he said quietly, "Dad's been fighting with Amber a lot lately." I wiped flour from my hands and gave him a gentle smile. Couples fight sometimes, honey. It doesn't always mean something bad. But he frowned. She says bad things about you when you're not here. That stopped me cold. What kind of things, sweetie? He hesitated. I don't know if I should say. I reached out and squeezed his hand. It's okay. You can tell me. He whispered. She says you make Dad feel guilty, that you're holding him back, that once the house is sold, they'll move somewhere new. The house? Sold? My chest tightened. I brushed it off in front of him, but inside, fear settled in my stomach like a stone. That night, when Ethan came home, I asked gently, Ethan, are you planning to sell the house? He looked confused, then annoyed. Where did you hear that? I didn't want to throw Mason into it. I just heard you and Amber talking. He sighed. Mom, please, she's just trying to help. Don't read too much into it. So, I dropped it. Because that's what mothers do. We give the benefit of the doubt, even when our hearts whisper otherwise. Mason was a 10 then. A quiet boy, thoughtful, who noticed everything. He loved his little tablet, always recording silly videos or pretending to be a YouTuber. One afternoon, while I was baking, he sat at the kitchen table, watching Amber and Ethan talk in low voices. He looked uneasy. Grandma, he said quietly, Dad's been fighting with Amber a lot lately. I wiped flour from my hands and gave him a gentle smile. Couples fight sometimes, honey. It doesn't always mean something bad. But he frowned. She says bad things about you when you're not here. That stopped me cold. What kind of things, sweetie? He hesitated. I don't know if I should say. I reached out and squeezed his hand. It's okay. You can tell me. He whispered. She said you make Dad feel guilty, that you're holding him back, that once the house is sold, they'll move somewhere new. The house? Sold? My chest tightened. I brushed it off in front of him, but inside, fear settled in my stomach like a stone. That night, when Ethan came home, I asked gently, Ethan, are you planning to sell the house? He looked confused, then annoyed. Where did you hear that? I didn't want to throw Mason into it. I just heard you and Amber talking. He sighed. Mom, please, she's just trying to help. Don't read too much into it. So, I dropped it. Because that's what mothers do. We give the benefit of the doubt, even when our hearts whisper otherwise. Mason was 10 then. A quiet boy. Thoughtful, who noticed everything. He loved his little tablet, always recording silly videos or pretending to be a YouTuber. One afternoon, while I was baking, he sat at the kitchen table, watching Amber and Ethan talk in low voices. He looked uneasy. Grandma, he said quietly, Dad's been fighting with Amber a lot lately. I wiped flour from my hands and gave him a gentle smile. Couples fight sometimes, honey. It doesn't always mean something bad. But he frowned. She says bad things about you when you're not here. That stopped me cold. What kind of things, sweetie? He hesitated. I don't know if I should say. I reached out and squeezed his hand. It's okay. You can tell me. He whispered. She said you make Dad feel guilty, that you're holding him back, that once the house is sold, they'll move somewhere new. The house? Sold? My chest tightened. I brushed it off in front of him, but inside, fear settled in my stomach like a stone. That night, when Ethan came home, I asked gently, "Ethan, are you planning to sell the house?" He looked confused, then annoyed. "Where did you hear that?" "I didn't want to throw Mason into it. I just heard you and Amber talking." He sighed. "Mom, please, she's just trying to help. Don't read too much into it." So I dropped it. Because that's what mothers do. We give the benefit of the doubt, even when our hearts whisper otherwise. A week later, I went to take out my jewelry box, a small wooden chest that used to sit in the top drawer of my dresser. When I opened it, the air went still. The box was there, but it felt light, too light. Inside, only the silver chain remained. The gold bracelet, the ring, the earrings, all gone. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind raced. Maybe I misplaced them. Maybe Ethan borrowed them to get cleaned. Anything but the truth that flickered at the edge of my thoughts. When Ethan came home, I asked casually, "Sweetheart, do you know where my jewelry went? I wanted to wear the bracelet for Sunday." He paused. Then came the hesitation, the half-second silence that told me everything. "Mom, maybe you moved it." I didn't. He rubbed the back of his neck, eyes darting away. "I'll ask Amber. Maybe she saw something." That night, he never mentioned it again. And I didn't press. Because sometimes silence is easier than breaking your own heart. Days turned into weeks. Amber started acting distant. She'd take calls outside, whispering, her voice sharp and quick. One evening, I overheard her say, "Yeah, he'll get the cash by Friday. Trust me, he's desperate enough." My chest tightened. When she hung up, she noticed me by the doorway and smiled too sweetly. "Oh, Linda, didn't see you there. Just talking to my cousin about rent money." Rent money. We didn't even have rent. This was our family home, paid off years ago. I nodded, pretending to believe her. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I walked quietly into Mason's room. He was awake, reading under his blanket with a flashlight. When he saw me, he whispered, "Grandma, I think something bad's happening." My throat tightened. "What do you mean, honey?" He looked scared. "I heard Dad talking to a man on the phone. He said the pawn shop closes at 6. I felt the room spin. But before I could say anything, Mason said softly, "Grandma, I think I recorded it, just in case." That night, I sat alone in the kitchen with the lights off, listening to my grandson's little recording. Ethan's voice, my own son, saying words I never thought I'd hear, talking about money, about selling what's left, about getting Amber out of town before anyone notices. I put my hand over my mouth so I wouldn't make a sound. The boy who once ran to me with scraped knees and whispered, "It hurts, Mom," was now the man plotting behind my back. I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal itself or the thought that he believed I'd never forgive him if he told me the truth. That was the night everything changed. And it all started with a little boy's courage. A 10-year-old who saw what the adults couldn't. The truth was about to come out. But none of us were ready for what it would reveal. They say truth doesn't stay hidden for long. But sometimes it whispers first, before it screams. The next morning, I made breakfast like nothing was wrong. Pancakes, bacon, orange juice, the usual. Ethan sat across from me, scrolling on his phone, barely touching his plate. Amber came downstairs wearing his sweatshirt, hair in a messy bun, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. Mason was quiet, eyes fixed on his food. Every few seconds he glanced at his dad, then at me, like he was waiting for someone to say something. The air felt heavy. I finally spoke. "Ethan, I've been thinking about that jewelry. Maybe I should file a police report. What do you think?" His fork froze halfway to his mouth. Amber looked up fast. "Police report? For some old bracelets?" I smiled gently. "They weren't just bracelets, they were memories." Ethan swallowed hard. "Mom, that's not necessary. Let's not make a big deal out of this." Amber's voice sharpened. "She's overreacting, Ethan. If she wants attention, she can just say so." Mason's small voice broke the silence. "Grandma's not lying." Amber turned to him, her tone sugar-sweet but eyes cold. "Oh, honey, grown-up things get misplaced sometimes." But Mason didn't flinch. He looked right at his dad and said softly, "You know where it went, don't you?" The room went still. Even the rain seemed to stop for a heartbeat. Ethan stood, pushing his chair back too fast. "Mason, that's enough." But the boy just reached for his little tablet, pulled up the recording, and pressed play. Ethan's voice filled the kitchen. Low, hurried, unmistakable. "Yeah, I'll bring it by before 6. The bracelet and the ring. That should cover it." Then Amber's voice. "Good. We can leave after. No one has to know." The sound of that word, leave, hit like a blade. Ethan's face drained of color. Amber's jaw tightened. And I just sat there, hands trembling around my coffee cup, watching the truth unravel right in front of us. When the clip ended, Mason looked up at me, eyes wet. "I didn't want to get Dad in trouble, Grandma, but I didn't want him to lie to you either." My throat ached. "Oh, baby." Amber stood fast. "This is ridiculous. You're spying on us with a kid's toy?" Ethan didn't move. He just stared at the table, shoulders slumped, shame written all over his face. After Amber stormed upstairs, I turned to Ethan. "Why, son?" My voice came out smaller than I meant it to. He didn't look up. "Mom, I messed up. I needed money. Amber's been talking about moving to Chicago. She said I could start fresh there. I didn't think." "You didn't think?" I whispered. "Ethan, those things weren't just gold. They were all I had left of your father, of our life together." He ran his hands through his hair, eyes glistening. "I know, Mom. I'm sorry, Mom. I'll get them back. I promise." But promises don't fill empty drawers. And trust, once it's gone, it doesn't come back easy. Still, there was something in his voice, that same boy I used to hold when he cried. So I said softly, "Then do it. Make it right, Ethan, before it's too late." The next evening, Amber packed her bags. No tears, no apologies, just anger and pride. She threw her suitcase into the back of her car, turned to Ethan and hissed, "You'll regret this, both of you." Then she sped off, tires splashing through puddles, disappearing into the night. Ethan stood in the driveway long after she was gone, rain soaking through his shirt. I wanted to reach out, to hug him, but all I could do was whisper, "Come inside, son, you'll catch cold." The next morning, Ethan drove into town to the pawn shop. He came home holding a small paper bag. Inside were the bracelet, the earrings, and the ring. A little dull now, but still mine. He placed the bag on the table and said quietly, "They were still there. I had to pay extra to get them back." I picked up the ring, the same one Tom had slipped on my finger 35 years ago. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Finally, I whispered, "Thank you." He nodded, eyes red. "I'm sorry, Mom. For everything. I was stupid. I thought I was helping Amber, but she didn't care about me or Mason. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't see the angry man I'd been afraid of losing. I saw my little boy again, the one who used to pick me wildflowers and say, "These are for you, Mama." But even with the jewelry back, the real damage wasn't metal or money, it was trust. Forgiving someone you love isn't about forgetting what they did. It's about remembering who they used to be and believing that person can come back. And in the quiet days that followed, I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, we could find our way there again. There's a moment after the storm when everything feels too quiet. No thunder, no shouting, just the sound of what's left. That's what the house felt like after Amber left. Silent, still, almost hollow. Amber's perfume still lingered in the hallway. Her shoes were gone, her clothes too. But on the dresser sat a half-empty perfume bottle and a note, one line, written in quick handwriting. "You chose them over me. Don't call." Ethan crumpled it and tossed it aside, but I could see the pain in his eyes. No matter how wrong she'd been, it still hurt to lose her. Mason stood quietly in the doorway. "Is she gone, Dad?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, buddy, she's gone." Mason looked down at his feet. "I didn't mean to make her mad." Ethan knelt beside him. "Hey, listen to me. You didn't do anything wrong. You told the truth. That's the bravest thing anyone can do." Mason blinked hard, trying not to cry. "Are you mad at me?" Ethan's voice broke. "No, I'm proud of you." I watched them from the hallway, a father and son, broken in different ways, but holding on to each other like it was all they had left. That night, after Mason went to bed, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee. He looked tired, not the kind of tired sleep could fix. "Mom," he said finally, voice barely a whisper, "I don't know who I've become." I sat down across from him, quiet. He rubbed his eyes. "When Dad died, I felt like everything fell on me. The bills, the pressure, the guilt of not being enough. And when Amber came along, I thought maybe she could fill that emptiness." I let him talk. He took a deep breath. "She made me feel needed again. But then she started wanting more, nicer things, bigger plans. And I wanted to give her everything. So when money got tight, I panicked. I thought, Mun's jewelry is just sitting there. I'll pawn it for a bit, get it back later." He looked at me, tears welling up. "I never meant to hurt you, Mom." I reached across the table and took his hand. "You did hurt me, Ethan. Deeply. But I also know what it's like to love someone so much you lose yourself trying to please them." He lowered his head. "Do you think you can forgive me?" I didn't answer right away. I wanted to mean it when I said it. So I looked at him and whispered, "I already started the moment you walked back in that door." His eyes closed, and for the first time in years, I saw him breathe easy. The next morning, Ethan asked if he could talk to Mason before school. I stood by the sink, pretending not to listen, but every word found its way to my heart. "Mason, what you did took courage. You told the truth when I didn't. I don't ever want you to think you did something wrong." Mason nodded, but his voice trembled. I just wanted Grandma to be happy. Ethan smiled faintly. She will be. We both will if we keep being honest. Then he pulled his son into a hug. And in that small, ordinary kitchen, with sunlight spilling across the table and the smell of toast in the air, something extraordinary happened. A father began to become a father again. A few days later, Ethan asked if I wanted to visit the old lake where we used to go when he was little. It had been years since we'd gone there. We packed sandwiches, Mason brought his sketchbook, and we drove out to the quiet edge of town. The water shimmered under the afternoon light. Ducks floated lazily by. I sat on the same old bench where Tom and I used to sit when Ethan was Mason's age. Ethan came and sat beside me. "Dad used to love it here," he said softly. "He did," I replied. Said the water reminded him that life always moves forward, no matter what. He nodded slowly, watching Mason skip rocks along the edge. "I wish you were here," Ethan said. "I think he'd be disappointed in me." I smiled gently. "No, Ethan. He'd be proud that you found your way back." He looked down, a tear sliding down his cheek. "Thank you, Mom." "For what?" "For not giving up on me." That evening, back home, Ethan left a folded piece of paper on my nightstand. I didn't see it until later when the house was quiet again. It was a letter. In his handwriting, shaky, uneven, but real. "Mom, I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm going to make things right, not just with you, but with myself. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like, even when I didn't deserve it. I'll never forget the look in Mason's eyes when he stood up for you. I want to be the kind of man he can be proud of. Your son, Ethan." Tears blurred the words, but I didn't wipe them away. They felt earned. Sometimes the turning point in a story isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet. It's the sound of a man finally facing his truth, a mother finally finding peace, and a child reminding them both what love really means. And that night, as I turned off the light and looked out the window, I whispered a small prayer. "Thank you for bringing my boy home, not just to this house, but to his heart." They say forgiveness doesn't happen in a moment. It happens in pieces, one quiet morning at a time. Weeks passed. The house began to sound different. There was laughter again. Small at first, but real. Ethan started getting up early, making breakfast with Mason before school. Sometimes he'd pack 2 lunches, one for Mason, one for me. He'd leave them on the counter with a note that said, "Don't forget to eat, Mom." It wasn't grand or dramatic, but every small gesture felt like a stitch mending an old tear. One morning, Mason asked, "Grandma, can Dad and I help in your garden?" I smiled. "Of course, sweetheart, but be careful with my roses. They're sensitive." Ethan laughed from the porch. "Wonder where they got that from?" I just shook my head, trying not to smile too wide. That garden had seen so many seasons, and now it was watching us grow again too. Ethan picked up more work at the auto shop. He started coming home tired, but there was a new kind of tired in him, the kind that comes from rebuilding, not running. Every evening, he'd sit at the table and pay bills, writing everything down carefully. Sometimes he'd ask, "Mom, can you check my math?" It reminded me of when he was a little boy, showing me his homework with that same unsure smile. He'd sigh, "I'm trying, Mom, I really am." And I'd always answer the same way. I see that, Ethan, and I'm proud of you. Little by little, the distance between us began to fade, replaced by the kind of silence that feels safe instead of cold. One afternoon, I noticed Ethan cleaning out the old drawer in my room. I asked, half curious, "What are you doing in there, son?" He turned, holding a small wooden box, the jewelry box. "I wanted to make sure it's safe, Mom. I added a new lock." He handed me the key. "I don't ever want you to worry again." My eyes stung. It wasn't about the box, it was about what it meant. He was protecting what he once betrayed. I took the key, closed my fingers around it, and whispered, "It's not the jewelry I trust again, Ethan. It's you." He looked at me, speechless, and in that moment I saw the man his father always hoped he'd become. A few weeks later, Mason came running into the kitchen with excitement. "Grandma, guess what? Dad says we're having a family dinner tonight. All of us together." I looked at Ethan, surprised. "Really?" He nodded with a grin. "Yeah, I want to cook. I owe you one of your favorites." That evening, the house filled with the smell of roasted chicken and herbs. The table was set with care, candles, clean plates, even the good silverware I hadn't used in years. We sat down together, just the three of us, and for a while no one said much. Then Mason raised his glass of milk and said, "To Grandma and to Dad for making everything okay again." Ethan smiled, voice thick with emotion. "To second chances." And I added softly, "To love that learns how to stay." We clinked glasses, and for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. On Sunday, I woke early. The house was quiet. I poured a cup of coffee and stepped out onto the porch. The air was crisp. A soft wind moved through the trees. Ethan came out a few minutes later, half asleep, holding his own mug. He sat beside me, not saying much. After a while, he asked, "Mom, do you really forgive me?" I turned to him, smiled, and said, "I forgave you the moment you started trying." He looked away, blinking fast. "I don't deserve it." "No one ever really does," I said softly. "That's why it's called grace." We sat there, in silence, a mother and son, watching the sun rise over a new chapter neither of us thought we'd get to see. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It just makes room for what's still possible. And in that still morning light, I realized something. You don't rebuild families with words. You rebuild them with moments. Moments of honesty. Moments of effort. Moments of love that show up quietly without asking for applause. And maybe that's what healing really is. The courage to love again, even after everything. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest memories. What once felt unbearable slowly becomes something you can hold, not to hurt, but to understand. It's been 6 months since that day in the kitchen when truth tore our family open. And sometimes, when I think about it, I still feel that sting, but it's quieter now, gentler. Because pain doesn't always stay pain. Sometimes it becomes proof of how deeply we can love. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I sat out on the porch with Mason. He was sketching birds in his little notebook, tongue poking out in concentration. "Grandma?" he said, not looking up. "Are you happy now?" The question caught me off guard. I thought for a second, then smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, I think I am." He grinned. "Even though the bad stuff happened?" I nodded slowly. "Especially because it did. You see, it taught us who we really are." He went back to drawing, and after a moment said softly, "I think Dad's happier too." I looked through the window, saw Ethan setting the table for dinner, humming under his breath, the same tune Tom used to hum when he was fixing things. And for a heartbeat, It felt like our family had come full circle. That Sunday, Ethan asked if I wanted to visit the cemetery with him and Mason. It had been a long time since I'd gone. We brought fresh flowers, white lilies, Tom's favorite, and knelt beside his grave. Ethan placed his hand on the stone and whispered, "Dad, I messed up, but I'm trying to make things right. I hope you can forgive me." I rested my hand on his shoulder. "He already has, son. He always believed you'd find your way back." The three of us stood there in silence, the wind moving gently through the trees, carrying the smell of rain and earth. And I felt something lift, a weight I didn't even realize I'd still been carrying. A month later, a letter arrived. It was from Amber. Her handwriting was different, smaller, shakier. "Ethan, I owe you an apology. I wasn't fair. I pushed you to be someone you weren't, and I used you to cover my own mess. Tell your mom I'm sorry. I hope you and Mason are doing better. Amber." Ethan folded it carefully, slipped it into the drawer, and said quietly, "I hope she finds peace." I nodded. Sometimes people come into our lives to teach us lessons we didn't know we needed. He smiled faintly. And sometimes they leave so we can finally start living right. On my birthday, Ethan and Mason surprised me with a small wrapped box. Inside was a new bracelet, simple silver, engraved with 3 words: love, truth, family. I ran my fingers over the letters, tears welling up. "It's beautiful," I whispered. Ethan said softly, "It's not gold, but it's honest. Just like us now." I reached out and hugged him, the kind of hug that says we made it. And Mason giggled, "Group hug!" wrapping his small arms around both of us until we all started laughing. Later that night, when the house was quiet, I sat by the window, the same spot I used to cry in when everything felt lost. The stars were out, soft and steady. The wind carried the smell of Ethan's cooking and the sound of Mason's laughter drifting down the hall. I thought back to the woman I was before all this, the one who felt broken, betrayed, and alone, and I realized she was gone. In her place stood someone softer, someone stronger, someone who had learned that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's how we heal. Maybe that's what life really is, a series of heartbreaks that teach us how to love better the next time. We lose things, we lose people, and sometimes we lose ourselves. But if we're lucky, love finds us again. Sometimes through a child's honesty, sometimes through a son's redemption, sometimes just through the quiet grace of a morning that feels lighter than the one before. When I look at my family now, at Ethan laughing in the kitchen, at Mason doing his homework, and the flowers blooming again in my garden, I realize something simple but true. Love isn't about never falling. It's about learning to stand back up together. What's broken can be mended. What's lost can be found. And even when trust shatters, it can grow back if we water it with patience and hold it with care. Because forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just makes room for the future. And that's how my son, my grandson, and I found our way home. Not just to each other, but to peace.